Hey everybody, Pete with Optics for Birding here again with another comparison video for you. Thank you everybody who's watched our comparison videos so far. You've probably seen both of these binoculars feature if you've watched all of our videos already. So I've got the SWAROVSKI NL Pure and the SWAROVSKI EL, both in a 10x42. Wanted to give you guys every little feature, help you explain the difference between the two binoculars and see why there's a $1,000 price difference between the two, because it's probably the most common question that we get. A lot of people browse our site and they see these two binoculars are really popular. They're both some of our best sellers, but a lot of people are, right to question why there's a $1,000 price difference, right? So today I've got the orange NL Pure that was just released about a month ago to make it a little bit easier to tell the two apart. But hopefully I'll answer every question that you could possibly have about these. If not, please, as always, drop a comment in the comment section down below. We'd love to hear your guys' questions and see what you guys have to say. So without further ado, here we go. NL Pure versus SWAROVSKI EL. So I'm going to start by describing what these two binoculars have in common, and it's actually a lot more than people think when they see the price difference, right? So they actually have very, very similar optical systems. So they're both using what SWAROVSKI has dubbed their SWAROVision technology. Those of you guys who have watched our videos before, you probably know what that means, but it's basically an umbrella term that describes all of their best quality glass, all of their best quality lens coatings. So both of these are going to have pretty much the same clarity overall. When you look at the binoculars side by side, there's really no difference in terms of the actual glass quality because it's the same. The SWAROVision also encompasses what both of these binoculars have in the eyepiece, which is a field flattening system. It's just supposed to give you a more pristine picture across the entire field of view, eliminate the chromatic aberration and distortions that you would normally see in other binoculars, particularly at the edges, right? So what both of these binoculars have that's much less common on older binoculars is that field flattening design that gives you that pristine, panoramic picture without chromatic aberration and distortions at the edges to distract you as much. So what justifies that $1,000 price difference, right? So number one, even though the quality of the lens coatings and the glass and everything is the same in both of these, the NL Pure has a much, much wider field of view. So just for comparison, their 10x42 has the same field of view as the 8.5 power EL, which is a pretty extraordinary difference, right? I mean, usually when you go up in magnification, you lose some field of view. It's just normally that's a consequence of zooming in more, is that you're going to have some kind of trade-off there. But in this case, SWAROVSKI took their time. They knew what they were doing, and they wanted to give people the widest field of view available. So that's why, again, the 10x42 NL Pure has the same exact field of view as the 8.5 power EL. It's about 399 feet at 1,000 yards. So normally I don't get too hung up on little differences in field of view, because a big difference on paper can look like almost nothing when you actually compare binoculars side by side. But in this specific case, it's definitely a noticeable difference right away. Like when you compare the 10x42 versus the 10x42 and you're doing an apples to apples comparison, there's no question that the NL just gives you that more panoramic image. You're able to, cover more ground at once. If you're a hunter, scanning for game, you're going to have a better time locating deer and elk and stuff like that in your field of view more easily. If you're a birder and you're, particularly trying to follow really jumpy moving birds in a forest, they're pretty close by. It's always better to have a nice wider field of view when you can get it, as long as you're not sacrificing anything else. So it used to be more common for really, really wide angle binoculars to have a lot of, fuzziness at the edges, a lot of things that would distract you from, the meat and potatoes that are going on in the middle. But in this specific case, again, because these both have that field flattening system, they don't let you get distracted by your peripheral vision. So in a practical sense, like when you're following a moving target and you're trying to keep that target in the center of your field of view, it gets really, really distracting, particularly for me, because I'm picky about these things, right? But it gets really distracting when you've got chromatic aberration and odd shapes popping up out of nowhere where they're not supposed to be. It takes your mind off of what you're supposed to be focusing on, and it distracts you. So the whole philosophy that we have when you're choosing binoculars is it's supposed to be an extension of your eyes and an extension of your hands. So if you feel like one of them gets in the way of those things less, that's great. And having a nice wide field of view without any of those distractions at your periphery is a good thing to have. So both of these binoculars definitely provide that. But again, there's a reason there's a $1,000 difference, right? So the NL just takes that to another level and widens the field of view quite a bit. So I think I've beaten that to death enough. Let's go on to what I actually think are the bigger differences, right? So ergonomically, you're looking at two completely different binoculars. Again, just to make the point again, the optical system on these is basically the same, other than the fact that you have the wider field of view in the NL Pure. One detail that some people like is that this also has about half the close focus distance. So the EL is up at 11 feet. The NL Pure is closer to about 6.5 feet if you're looking at both of the 10x42s. So not exactly half, if you want to check my math there, but if you're into, entomology, if you're looking at like plants and lizards and whatever other little critters could like be within that 10-foot distance, the EL for a lot of people is just not going to cut it. So just keep that in mind if you are into the more close-up viewing parts of the binoculars can offer. Okay, so now that I've beaten the optical differences to death, let's go and look at the ergonomics. So that's really where I think the bigger difference comes in. The optical system is not a night and day difference at all, but the ergonomics on these are quite different. The first thing that you do with a pair of binoculars before you look through it at all is you pick it up, right? So you can't look through a pair of binoculars without grabbing it with your hands, and the NL Pure just gives you a much better time doing that for the vast majority of people. I say that because we have had some people that come in the store and they like this feel a little bit better, but the way that the kind of midsection of the NL Pure is trimmed down so that it fits naturally into your hand, that is something that I think just makes it so much easier to hold for a longer period of time because it alleviates some of the pressure points in your hand. That's exactly what Swarovski was going for when they designed these. I mean, they even consulted like ski glove manufacturers to make sure that they were making them as comfortable for the human hand as possible, rather than building a binocular and then trying to play catch up when it comes to the housing design, right? It really just, it's one of the most natural feeling binoculars I've ever used, and really ergonomic grip that it provides. What that does is it facilitates a really natural position for the focus wheel. So right when you grab onto it in the most natural way with your thumbs tucked in there, I don't know if you guys can see that, but the focus wheel lands right where my index finger would naturally lie, and it's extremely smooth, and that makes it even easier to use when I'm only got one hand on the binocular. It makes it easier to turn back and forth quickly when I'm trying to keep track of animals that are moving pretty quickly. But the bottom line with all this stuff is that it just feels natural in my hands. Now when I look at the EL, not that it's not a great set of binoculars all around, but ergonomically it does fall a little bit short, and that's one of the main reasons that they designed the NL Pure this way is because there are some ergonomic shortcomings with this guy. So number one, it is a little bit heavier of a feel. On paper, they're actually really similar in terms of the weight. They're right at about 30 ounces, but because the way the binocular fits into your hand is not as natural on the EL, it does feel like you're holding more. It feels like the binoculars are kind of falling away from your face as opposed to falling back into your eye sockets and staying stable. So that's one thing. And then when I naturally grip the binoculars like I do with the NL Pure, my index finger just has to be skewed a little bit more to reach the focus wheel. Not a huge deal, but it is something that some people take note of, that they have to like put their hands in a slightly unnatural position for that. I think that the real kicker though between these two ergonomically is that the EL focus wheel just does not feel anywhere near as fast and responsive. So if there's any key difference that you're going to take away from these two, optics aside, the focusing wheel is just a night and day experience to me. So when I have the EL in my hand and the focus wheel's up here, and I can't turn it as quickly, and it's not as responsive, and it's not as smooth, that I think really makes the difference for a lot of people, especially if you have like arthritis in your hands, if you have a situation where you really need to be quick on your heels and turn the focus wheel and it cooperates for you. That's, I think, the biggest difference between these two binoculars, full stop. So they both take about 2 revolutions to go between the close focus distance and infinity. But again, remember that the NL Pure has a closer close focus. So when you're operating in those distances between, let's say 20 to 50 to 100 feet, the NL Pure does give you a slight edge there because you're going to have, an easier time turning the focus wheel, number one, and it's going to be a little bit more responsive. This one just does not feel anywhere near as natural, and it feels like it just takes a little bit more elbow grease there. So there are plenty of people that wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, if you're doing astronomy, if you're hunting with them, obviously you're looking at pretty long distances. You're not going to be too concerned about how fast the focus is, but birding just happens to be probably the most demanding use for binoculars that exists. So that's why Swarovski came out with these specifically to give nature lovers that extra edge. On top of that, I mean, the EL has these little thumb grips in there, which some people like. I don't personally think that it gives you the most stable, grip on the binoculars, because if you've got your thumbs here and all that's underneath the binoculars is your thumbs in those little grooves, you don't have as much supporting the binoculars as if you hold them, with the palms of your hands underneath. So what I like to do is just tuck my thumbs into the middle there, put more of my hands underneath, pretend the little thumb grooves here are not even there, but to each their own. If you find that more comfortable and stable for you, especially if you've got, your elbows on a chair rest like this, there's no wrong way to hold binoculars or to use binoculars. I'm not here to claim that. I'm just saying that, like most people, including myself, they have a much more natural distraction-free time with the NL Pure than the EL. So ergonomically, other than that, I mean, they both have really good eye cup designs. Like, I've always loved how Swarovski's eye cups feel really, really sturdy. I know that they break sometimes, but that's just, there's no binocular that we sell that doesn't have eye cups that break sometimes, right? So when you twist them up and down, they don't feel like they're going to push in on you. They have really, really solid, stopping positions in between fully in and fully out. So if you are wearing glasses or not wearing glasses, and the depth of your eye sockets makes things a little bit complicated, you can cater that to whatever you need. So sometimes, if you have glasses on and you need a little bit of extra eye relief, you can just bump them out a little bit. So these eye cups make that pretty easy to do, just like on the EL. But the EL doesn't have quite as many positions in between. With the NL Pure, it's about 6 or 7 different positions. With the EL, it's 3 or 4. Another really cool feature that I like as somebody that switches between like a neck strap and a harness a lot is Swarovski's Field Pro connection system. So this little quick release lock and key little pin system that they have makes it a lot easier to switch between straps and harnesses, because you have just a pin that turns and comes out, pop it into the end of the strap, and you're back in business, and you can put it in really quickly. With other binoculars, even like the older ELs that have a traditional strap loop, it takes a while to thread and unthread a strap, and it makes you never want to have to do the process again. Whereas this, it makes it a nice quick release, easy to change system. There is one X factor here that I haven't mentioned that could make the decision for you though, so I'm gonna go get that right now. All right, so this little gadget here is the forehead rest that Swarovski developed for the NL Pure. It's also on their EL range binoculars that they came out with a few years ago now, but as the name implies, it's a little pad that rests against your forehead to give you a little bit more stability. So I'm going to demonstrate how it works right now. So you pop it into the housing on the binoculars between the eyepieces. You roll it out until it hits your forehead. Obviously I have these covered right now, but I'm just demonstrating. And that extra point of contact there just keeps the binoculars from bobbing up and down as much. It gives you a steady view compared to not having it, and I really think it makes this a completely different binocular. We do sell this without the forehead rest because it is an added accessory, but I'm amazed that we ever do, because I just find it so useful for keeping that image even more steady. There's a big debate in the birding community about which magnification is the perfect choice for different environments. There's a lot of people that say 8 is the only way to go. There are some people that prefer the 10 power binoculars, and one of the main reasons that people don't go with higher power binoculars is because if you have any tremor in your hand, or if you're just not perfectly steady, any movement in the binocular is going to get magnified more as you increase the power. So having that little forehead rest there, all of a sudden that makes it so that some people that have a tremor in their hand can use a 10 power binocular where they couldn't before. So if you're looking at the EL and you're trying to hold it steady, and no matter what you do, even if you're holding it perfectly, it just is too shaky of an image to give you a good experience. Having the NL Pure, not only with that more ergonomic grip, but the forehead rest set on there, it can really transform the experience. So if you're on the fence between 8 and 10, you don't think that you're quite steady enough to handhold a 10, I would highly encourage you to give the NL Pure with the forehead rest a try. And I'm going to demonstrate how much more of a difference it even makes with glasses on, because I think when you have no glasses on, right, and you can put the eye cups into your eye sockets, like there's some area up on the top and the bottom of your eye sockets, it's going to be able to grab onto the eye cups. So that's going to stabilize the binocular, number one. But number two, obviously when you add the forehead rest there, it's even better. I'm going to go get my glasses and show you why it makes an even bigger difference there. Okay, I'm back. This is what I usually look like with my glasses on. Probably see a lot of reflections, that's why I don't usually have them on in the videos. But anyway, with the eye cups twisted all the way in, that's how you would normally use any binocular with your glasses on. When you put the eye cups against your glasses, and there are plenty of people who need glasses that just hate using binoculars with glasses on, so they just do away with it completely. But for somebody like myself who's blind as a bat at a distance, I'm very nearsighted, and if I try to go birding without my glasses on, I'm not going to be able to spot anything in a distance unless I have my binoculars up. So it's just a necessary evil for me. So I have to have my eye cups twisted in. And what that means is that the eye cups can kind of float on my glasses a little bit. There's no really solid, anchor point for the binoculars to grab onto. On the other hand, when I have the NL Pure, I put my forehead on the pad, and that takes care of itself even if I don't have the eye cups touching, right? So I actually find myself using it like that quite often without even like having the eye cups up at my eyes. I usually get the full field of view even just having the forehead on the pad like that. So that's going to differ for everybody, but I just wanted to emphasize that point, because that forehead rest, actually stays put like right where I want it. And especially if I'm only using the binoculars with one hand, like forget about it, right? If I don't have this, it's really hard to get the binoculars to stay in one place. Obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit for the video, but that is to a lesser extent what happens when you're in the field and you're using binoculars with one hand with glasses on. It's hard to keep them centered on your pupils. With the forehead rest, on the other hand, piece of cake. So I don't know if that justifies an extra $1,000 plus, the forehead rest itself, at least as of now, barring any price changes that happen in the future. The forehead rest is $169, if I can get it off the binoculars. So if you don't buy this accessory at all, there is an exact $1,000 price difference. There's $19.99 for the EL, $29.99 for the NL Pure, and these are again the 10x42s. I think it's well worth the difference. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I'm in the industry and I get to, I'm spoiled and I get to use this stuff all the time. But I have never had a customer regret making the jump to the NL Pure because of every little detail being better. So just to recap, I mean, optically, same glass quality, lens coating quality, all that SWAROVSKI technologies in both binoculars, but you get a much wider angle design with the NL Pure. Just to reemphasize one more time, the 10x42 NL Pure and the 8.5 power EL have the exact same field of view. So just to show you how big the difference is. This also has the close focusing distance if you're into the birds, butterflies, and things that are really close by. On top of that, ergonomically, that's I think where the real difference comes in. You have the better grip, you have a nicer focus wheel, you have a more responsive focusing system, and then on top of that, forehead rest is just kind of the cherry on top for a lot of people. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I've tried to cover every little detail that I can possibly think of when it comes to these two binoculars because they are probably the two that we get the most searches for. They're probably the two that people ask us about the most. And understandably so. When you're looking at a $1,000 price difference, you want to know what you're getting. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Again, please message us, call us. You can always drop a comment in the comment section below. And please visit our website, www.opticsforbirding.com, to learn more. And as always, thanks so much for watching. See you next time.